Hey everyone, how's it going? My name is Daryl. Welcome back to this channel. In the previous lessons, we just learned how to use these interactive controls to trigger the technical analysis. And in these lessons, what we're going to do is that we will focus on these interactive controls. This will allow us to trigger the Algorithmics trading bots based on our own strategies. I should say this is the most important lessons that you should not skip if you would like to integrate your own strategies. So let's go ahead and get started. Before you integrate your own strategies into the trading platform, I believe that it makes sense if you have already backtested the algorithm. And here I have a series that's previously presented to you guys that you can actually backtest your own strategies with more than 500 trading days. So in the Python for Finance 13 up to the Python for Finance 16, I already told you how to create different strategies that includes the moving average crossover trading strategies, the Mecd algorithmic trading bot, and the RSI algorithmic trading bot, and finally the Bollinger Band trading bot. So now in these lessons, what we're going to do is to integrate these four strategies into our live trading platform. Holistically, there will be three big steps that involve three programs. At the very beginning, you need to backtest your algorithms with your own algorithmic trading bots. So you need a backtest programs that we introduced before. And then you need to capture the data that align with your own algorithmic trading bot, just like what we did before. That we can either use the BeautifulSoup or the Selenium that I showed here to capture the live data that match with your own trading bot. And finally, of course, you can integrate your own trading bots with these kind of visualized platform. On the other hand, you can also simply just trigger some signals and send yourself some alerts, or you can even just simply put these buy-sell signal into an Excel for your further actions. So that is pretty flexible. That is all up to you. With that said, let's see how we can integrate the algorithmic trading bot into our own platform. Before we create the algorithmic trading bot, define the functions, we need to implement the algorithmic trading bot, inside these animate functions. So just to make sure that this algorithmic trading bot is implemented for every single loop. And then of course we can define the strategies for each of them. Say for example, I want to create the moving average strategies. I also want to implement the Mecd trade crossover strategies. I want to use the RSI strategies, and as well as the Bollinger Band strategies. Apart from the status that we get from the interactive control, we also need to consider whether or not we have enough data to create these strategies. Say for example, we would like to track, or we would like to implement the moving average strategies with three different periods that includes the 5, 10, and 20. So in that case, we need to make sure that we already have enough points or enough data points for us to create these moving average before we implement these strategies. So we always need to add conditions before each of the strategies. Say, for example, for the moving average strategies, we check out whether or not the status has been enabled, At the same time, we also wanted to make sure that there is enough closing points, enough data to play around or to implement that strategies. In this case, we need to make sure that it have enough points to calculate the moving average. So for this example, we need to make sure that the length of the data for the closing price is more than 20 data points. And then for the MACD, we need to make sure that the length is more than 26 periods, because what we're going to do is to implement the MACD 12, 26, 9. So in that case, we need to have at least 26 data points or closing price for us to calculate the technical indicator. And then for the RSI, apart from checking the RSI status from the interactive control, we also would like to see if there's any data that is larger than 0 from the data frame before we implement the strategies. And then finally, for the Bollinger Bands, of course, we also need to make sure that it has enough data to do so. And in our cases, the Bollinger Bands, we are going to use the 20 period moving average. So in that case, we need to make sure that we have more than 20 points in order for us to calculate the Bollinger Band. Hence, implements the Bollinger Band strategies. Because we also would like to create the buying or selling signal over the graph. So for example, here we can see the selling signal, and then here we have a bunch of buying signal over the graph. We also would like to provide them a legend. So in that case, under these animate functions, we also would like to put those legends over the chart. So I will check against the status for the moving average, the MACD, RSI, and also Bollinger Bands, just in case if they have some data that is showing this, and then it will help me, these functions will help me to plot them out over the legend. But of course, at the back end, we also need to identify the label when we do the plotting. So that will be included into the strategies. Now we've created the code to implement the Algorithmics trading bot. Now it's time for us to define the Algorithmics trading bot. So what we just did is to create the MACD, implement the MACD strategies, implement the MA strategies, MACD strategy, RSI, and also Bollinger Band strategies. So here we need to define each of the Algorithmics trading bots. So we need to define the moving average strategies. We need to define the MACD trading strategies, and also we need to define the RSI trading strategies, and also the Bollinger Band trading strategies. Because I've already covered the trading strategy in Python for Finance 13 up to Python for Finance 16, so I will just go through these contents quickly. And for the details, please feel free to just get back to those video. For the MH moving FH trading strategies, we need to measure the moving FH for 5, 10, and 20 periods. And then we would like to have a bunch of lists that include the buy, sell, and record. And also we would like to have the initial buying positions or selling positions, and we will continue to update these positions. And then we need to create the trading strategies. Now, the first things that I would like to check is whether or not we have enough data to do to perform these strategies. Although I've already done in these animate functions over here, but I also would like to double check to make sure that we have the enough data for us to create that strategies. And at the same time, I also would like to plot the strategies. So here I will always look through the entire data set to create the buy sell signal as well as the buy sell actions for the for plotting. Therefore, first of all, I need to create a for loop for me to loop over the entire data range. And then if the I equals to 1, then that means we're not going to do anything. That is the very first point. So of course we're not going to do anything. Else if we have some data over the moving average, in that case, we will start to implement these strategies. However, if here you can see if the data that is equals to NA, that means we do not have any data for this moving average. In that case, I will just place an np.nan for this buy sell signal. So that is the that is to cater the data before the moving average 20 periods. And then once we have enough data, we have successfully created the moving average 20. Now we can check out the conditions to see whether there is any buying or selling signal. Say for example, for the buying signal, is that we need to make sure that there is a crossover from the moving average period 5 that will be going from the bottoms to cross over the moving average 10 periods and also moving average 20 periods. In that case, the moving average, the 5 period moving average just cross over the 10 periods and 20 periods moving average. In that case, that is a buying signal. Once we have a buying signal, we will then check if we have any positions. At the very beginning, if we already short selling something, that means we can just complete this trade by buying some stocks back. So in that case, we will then just complete this trade. So we will then set these sell positions back to false. And then of course for the buy positions, that will continue to be false because we do not buy anything, we just complete this trade. And these two are for the positions. For the plot, because we are not selling anything, so we'll just continue to append the NAN. On the other hand, because we are going to buy something, we will just show these price over the plot. But because I do not want it to be overlapped with the current plot, so in that case, say for example, let me pick this one. I do not want it to overlap with the candlestick. So here you can see I have a gap over here, and this gap is created by this delta. And this delta, in this case, I set it 0.1% with the lowest price, just 0.1% down below the lowest price at this candlestick. On the other hand, if we do not have any stock that we are short selling, and at the same time we do not have any buy positions, we do not hold any stock, and then we will just buy the stock at that particular moment or at that particular candle. And in that case, we will then turn the buy positions equals to true and sell positions equals to false, and we'll just update the buys and sell positions. And at the same time, we would like to show it over the graph, so we will just append the data similar to what we did for these sell positions equals to true conditions. And finally, just in case we already have the stock on hand, we already long the stock. In that case, we are not going to buy the stock again, so we are not going to append anything. And that will complete all actions that we need to do when we have a buying signal. On the other hand, when we check the data, if there is a selling signal, what is a selling signal here is that when the 5 periods moving average is going from the top to cross over to the 10 periods moving average and 20 periods moving average, in that case, that will trigger a selling signal. So that means the moving average, the 5 period moving average is coming from the top, cross over the 10 period moving average and 20 periods moving average, that will trigger a selling signal. And in that case, we'll check whether or not we already have any stock on hand. If we have stock on hand, of course, that will complete that trade. And in that case, we will then just set the buy position, sell positions equals to false because we already complete the trade. And at the same time, because we're selling some data, in that case, we are not buying any data, buying any stock. So in that case, we'll just append an NANs for the buy list, and on the sell list, we are going to append the data. And in this case, we also would like to set a gap for that particular point, for that particular candle. So say for example, let me find a buy signal over here. Just say for example over here, you can see in this particular candlestick, we would like to buy something. So I just add a additional margins over here so that it won't overlap with the candlestick or overlap with the highest point. So we capture the data's highest point, and additional, I just add a margin, and that is 0.1% for that highest point of that particular candlestick. And once again, we complete that trade. On the other hand, if we do not have any positions or we do not hold any stock, in that case, we would like to short selling the stock. And then we'll just turn the sell positions into true, and we are not buying anything, so we just continue to set it as false. And in that case, similar to the previous actions, we will just append nothing for the buy list, and append the highest data points with some margins into the cell list. And finally, if we do not have any buy positions, but at the same time we already short sell the stock, then we do not want to sell the stock again, so we just append NAN to the buy and sell list. And if there's no crossover that trigger these two conditions, we will just continue to put NAN into the buy and sell list. That means we will just continue to do nothing. And finally, we can just append these leads into the data frame. And here I just named this column as the MA buy and NA sell. And of course, we can also put them into the graph with the scatter plot, and the x-axis is the data index, and then the y-axis for the that is for the buy, and we have the label MA buy, and the marker over here is a shooted space, and the face color is none. The edge color over here is, let me show you the color, sorry, not this one, is pale blue for the buying signal, pale blue, and then for the selling signal, that should be yellow over here. So for the edge color, that is pale blue, and alpha equals to 1. That means we want to show it, show the marker, and the size is 150. And similarly for the MA cell, we just give the x-axis and provide the y-axis, and then the labels is MA cell. And again, we would like to use the spade as the marker, and there's a for the face color that is equals to 1. We're not going to show anything inside that spade. And then for the edge color, that is yellow, and then alpha equals to 1, and then the size equals to 50. And that's complete the strategies. And finally, of course, you can also return the data and also the record, that is the records of your trade, into the animate functions over here. And you can continue to work on some function. You can continue to build any functions that might require these data. And that completes the moving FH crossover strategies. For the Mecd trading strategies, just like what we did before, we of course need to calculate the Mecd, and there are 3 columns from this technical analysis Mecd that includes the Mecd signal line. That includes the Mecd line and Mecd histogram, and also the Mecd signal line. And I just rename them and put them and concatenate them back into the data frame. And once again, we need to create a couple of lists to help me to capture the buy sell signal and also their records. And also we need to have the buy sell positions to make sure that we perform the right actions when according to our current positions. And similar to the moving FH, we will just check out the logic for each of the candlestick. And in that case, just like what we did before, we would like to do nothing. Let me show you. We would like to do nothing if at the very beginning, and also if there's no data in the histogram. It means there's not enough data for us to measure the crossover, because we need to have enough data to understand whether or not there's any crossover happened. Therefore, in that case, if I is equals to 0 at the very first candle, and we'll just append nothing. And then if the candlestick, if there's no histogram for this Mecd, then we are not going to do anything. In that case, we will just do nothing. Just do nothing. So you can see that the buy sell appends the NAN. And now we can check out the logic if there's something happens, if there's some data in the histogram. The first is to check out the buying signal. And there's two conditions for this if statement. I'm not please feel free to refer to the details into my previous video. And just like there are two conditions. The first condition is that we need to make sure that previously the histogram is negative, and then in the current status the histogram is a positive. And in that case, we will then check whether or not this Mecd and also the signal line is below 0. And if that histogram crossover happens, and at the same time the Mecd and signal line is below 0, that will trigger a buying signal. And this buying signal is exactly, this buying actions is exactly the same to the moving average strategies. So I'm not going to repeat myself here. And then, of course, for the histograms over here, for the selling signal over here, we again check out the histograms, whether or not previously the histogram is larger than 0, and then that is in the previous step. And then in the current step, whether that is less than 0. And at the same time, that is the first conditions. And then at the same time, whether or not the Mecd and also signal lines are positive. If that is the case, that will trigger a selling signal. And this selling signal is exactly the same to the moving average strategies. So again, I'm not going to repeat myself. And finally, just in case there's no crossover, and at the same time, there's no the second conditions are not fulfilled, in that case, we're not going to do anything. And then finally, we will again create a column for storing the buying and selling list. And also we would like to plot them into the chart. And in this case, we will use the heart instead of space for the Mecd. And of course, we also would like to return the data frame for further investigations or any actions. And then for the RSI, we will simply calculate the RSI with the use of the technical analysis methods. And of course, just like what we did, we will check we will create a few empty lists for us to plot the data in the graph and also help us to record the buy sell actions. And we will just set the initial positions. And for the RSI, we will just we'll just do the same, similar to what we did in previous two strategies. And if there's not enough RSI data, let me hide this one. If there's not enough RSI data, and also if that is the very first candlestick, we are not going to do anything. So we will just append NANs into the buy sell actions. And then there are two conditions that we need to fulfill before we trigger that buying signal. And we will check against whether or not in the previous RSI data is less than 30. And then once that RSI data is moved across this 30 threshold, and that becomes a positive in the next steps or in the current steps. In that case, that will trigger a buying signal. That means if the RSI, say the RSI is across this 13th threshold, just come across from the bottom to the top. And then in that case, that will trigger a buying signal. And everything is the same, so I'm not going to repeat. But on the other hand, if just in case, if the RSI is coming from the top to bottom, that will trigger a selling signal. And in this case, that should be something like this. And you can see this line, this RSI is from data that is larger than 70 to a data at the current steps that is less than 70. So in that case, I will check that conditions to decide whether or not we need to sell the stock. And that will actually create a selling signal. And once we have that selling signal, we will just do what we did before. So only the conditions has been changed, has been updated. The buy sell actions are all the same. And finally, for this RSI, I also would like to integrate them into the data frame with the RSI buy, RSI sell. And finally, I also would like to plot them with the scatter plot. And for these times, I will use the club as the marker. And of course, I would like to return data and records just in case we would like to further work on these results. And finally, for the Bollinger Band trading strategies, I will just use the TA.Bollinger Bands methods to calculate the Bollinger Bands. And then once we have the Bollinger Bands, I would like to rename them with the upper band, with the lower band. And then just reset the index to put it back, concatenate it back with the current data frame. And similar to what we did before, we will create the buy sell record list and also initialize the buy sell positions. And then we will set up the logic. And everything are the same, just the logic over here is different. And for the buying signal is triggered by the lower band that is the lower boundary of the Bollinger Band, if half of the candlestick is below this Bollinger Band, that will trigger the buying signal. For the selling signal, we will check against the upper band. And in case if half of the candlestick that is over these Bollinger Band upper bands, that will trigger a selling signal. And then for all the rest, just in case if we have the buying signal, for all the rest here are the same. And just in case if we have the selling signal, for all the rest of the codes here are the same as well. So I'm not going to repeat myself. And finally, I will just integrate it back into the data frame that we have and continues to do the scatter plot. And for this time, the marker here is the diamond. And again, we will return the data and also the record. And once again, because I've already covered all the strategies in previous lessons from Python for Finance number 13 to Python for Finance number 16. And so I'm not going to repeat the details over here. And now, all the strategies are ready. And in the future, I believe that you can continue to use these logics to create your own algorithmics trading bot. However, the only things that you need to change is the logics or the conditions over here that will trigger your buying signal. And also these logics over here that will trigger your selling signal. So these should be the two lines of codes that you need to change to integrate your own trading strategies. Of course, you also need to have some minor adjustments in terms of the labels, in terms of the naming, in terms of the markers, something like that. But for the major change, that is only for the buying and selling signal. And now, if I run this program, you should be able to control your strategies by clicking each of them. And here you can see for the moving average, that will be the space over here. And for the MACD, that will be the heart. And RSI, that will be the club. And then for the Bollinger Bands, that will be a diamond over here. Before I end this lesson, one last thing that I would like to mention here is for the integrations of your Algorithmics trading bot through an API. So here you can see that I actually use the buy-sell positions over here to consider whether or not we should buy or sell any stock. But actually, you can also use these buy-sell positions to help you to link it up with your trading platform with the use of API, say for example. So say for example, in this case, if I see there's a buying signal over here, I can put my API, I can use an API and link to the trading platform and to just trigger a buy action. And at the same time, I can also link it to the API use the API to link it to my trading platforms to trigger that buy actions. And here, because this is a selling signal, you can just simply to link it to your trading platform with the use API and trigger a sell actions. And then for the rest of the times, you're not going to do anything. So this is the way how you can integrate your Algorithmics trading bot with your brokerage account. So that is the end for this Python for Finance series. In the future lessons, I will continue to build different technical analysis, technical indicators, and at the same time, I will continue to build more sophisticated strategies and put them in practice. So see you in the future videos. Bye bye.